Aloha and welcome to the Keeping It Pono Podcast. I'm Kyle Galdera with Kamehameha Schools Communications, and I'm joined again by Pono Ma'a, the namesake of this podcast. How are you doing, Pono?
Doing great, Kyle. Mahalo.
Yeah, we're recording this on a Monday, so it's an Aloha Monday. We're coming to you on this second edition of the Keeping It Pono Podcast. And Pono and I are both KS Kapalama graduates. Pono, as I mentioned, I'm with the Communications Department. Pono serves as the Director of Advancement, and he's the Executive Director of the Pauahi Foundation. So a lot of different hats that everybody's wearing right now in these interesting times. And as we mentioned when we introduced the podcast last month, this is just another channel for our alumni to get engaged, as well as some of the stakeholders that are really involved in the great things that KS does on a daily basis. So mahalo for tuning in. And for this episode of the podcast, we really wanted to focus on giving and different ways that, like I said, stakeholders and alumni can give back. So, Pono, tell us a little bit about some of the ways that our alumni are really stepping up to give back to the community and to others involved with KS.
Love to, Kyle. First of all, I just want to make sure we send our shout out to everyone out there. I hope you're safe and doing well. And thanks for joining us. We want to build that base. So with the very few, hopefully we can grow to a big group. We are really encouraging alumni to give back, and some of the many ways they are is through time. And so our class reps that represent Kapalama specifically right now, and we're looking to build Hawaii and Maui class reps, is one way that our alumni can give back. And they represent their classes, they communicate out information. And the other group that does a lot of work with us is the Alumni Association. And so alumni associations cut across the regions. The class reps go straight up and down with the campus programs. And what they've been doing is working with us to look at alumni survey results and start to really gear our programming around what our alumni want to do.
Okay. And you mentioned the not only treasure, which is sometimes monetary gifts, but there's also the time and talent too. So there's a lot of different ways that people can give back, whether it's volunteering their time to hand out kupuna meals or just even giving mana'o on different projects that you're doing. So why is it important to really hit all those three aspects of the giving and engagement process?
Yeah, I think one of the main differences about Kamehameha schools today is this vision of lifting our lahui. And so we talk about this on a daily basis. If the vision is not just to have students be successful at a campus, but how do we lift our people? It really drives to how do we make an impact in our community? And so alumni are doing amazing things. Just top of mind, I was watching a couple of programs. One of them was with Ron Mizutani, who's doing the food bank drive to make sure everyone is getting food, especially those unemployed. We had Micah Kane doing a lot of funding for the food bank and others through scholarships, etc., with the Hawaii Community Foundation. We also had Paula Akana pushing for Iolani Palace to be able to make it, so that we could tell our story as far as a people. And so alumni at various levels, and that's just to name a few, are jumping in and making it in a difference, but more globally rather than just back to our school. So that's what we want to see when we talk about lifting lahui.
Okay. And I'm glad you mentioned some of those prominent alumni who are really doing great work in our communities, because normally this time of year we'd be gearing up for Launa Ike, which is a program that involves alumni in different career backgrounds, basically going back to school and really telling the current students about their careers and ways to get involved in those different career pathways. Mm-hmm. And because of the coronavirus pandemic this year, that event is not going to happen. But looking ahead to next year, and maybe things will be back to, I don't want to call it the new normal, but we've been referring to it as the next normal. So when the next normal is here and we're kind of getting back to in-person gatherings, what is it about Launa Ike that is such a great opportunity for folks to give back? Like you said, with that time, not necessarily a treasure aspect in that sense.
Yeah, it's so extremely valuable. There's so many alumni that are being successful at various levels all across the Pai'aina. And what we find is that a lot of our students connect so much better with someone that's been in their shoes. And so when somebody says, hey, you know what? I was in your chair. I know what it's like. I ran those hills. I know what PE does to you. You got to hang in there. And if you're interested in this field, I can share a little bit about how I did it. And so the value of Launa Ike is that our current students can connect to people who have walked in their shoes. And so Launa Ike was postponed, and most of that because of COVID. But what I understand is they're looking at doing something virtually. And so if you do want to volunteer for Launa Ike, definitely send us a shout out at alumni at ksbe.edu. And if you're interested in giving back of your time and you have experiences that you feel kids will benefit from, please send us a shout out so that we can get you on the mailing list.
Okay. And on that note, going back to what you said about the different KSAA organizations and then the individual class reps, there's a lot of different actions happening in the community because of the efforts of our alumni. So what are some of those things that you're hearing as you engage with some of these leaders and different class reps?
Well, you know, it's interesting. I want to do a spin-off because just last week we had a major donation made to Kapalama campus to fund the first of its kind VA. And so it'll be a voyaging program that will be sponsored. The amount was $350,000. And this came to us from an alumni. And her view was, how do I make a difference in new programming? And this venture is actually something that we're partnering with Polynesian Voyaging Society. So Nainoa was sharing about, hey, you know what? We have leaders, but we need navigators. We need young people who can not only just tell people what to do, but understand a changing landscape and how we can be successful in that. And so when you talk about, what are some new things that are happening? That's just one example of an alumni making a donation to start a whole new program at Kapalama campus that will start to create this pipeline to PVS and create future leaders for our Lahui. And so I lift that up as one example of alumni that feel like, hey, you know what, I can make a difference. And in that case, it was treasure. But the first part of it is understanding, hey, you know what, how can I make a difference? And in this case, that was the way she decided.
Okay. And I'm glad you brought up that example because as we were preparing for this podcast, we were actually talking about how Kamehameha Schools in itself is actually operating much differently. Whereas instead of kind of forging our own path and doing everything in a bubble, we're actually partnering and really using a lot of different organizations and their Ike and Mana'o to make decisions that way. So like you said, this donation, instead of KS just saying, okay, we're going to start this project and fund it, we're actually looking to people like alumni to help contribute to these efforts that'll help generations of our students continue that legacy for generations to come.
And we've known this for years, that a lot of our alumni go out and do successful things in our communities. And really what we're noticing now is this very deliberate effort to say, hey, you know what? You don't have to give back to the school necessarily. What we want to see is a thriving Lahui. We want to make sure that a lot of people can benefit through our benefactress, Pauahi. She gave us so much, and now it's how can we lift others? And so we're looking to our alumni as the first step in that process of saying, hey, you know what? We benefited. We definitely have an opportunity to share knowledge like Launa Ike, or in this case, treasure, to start a new program, a voyaging program to create future leaders. Or in sometimes it's Ike, it's the knowledge. And that's what we're talking about through Launa Ike, is how can you share your path so that others can actually take it and pass it on.
Okay. And we mentioned kind of that bigger picture of not only KS alumni, but stakeholders as well as at really helping out other Native Hawaiian serving organizations, not just Kamehameha Schools. So why is it important for our alumni and those listening to this podcast to get involved with, like you said, the Hawaii Food Bank, the Iolani Palace, even CNHA and OHA to different degrees helping Native Hawaiians? Why is it important to get engaged?
Yeah, I have to believe that we understand we all have a vested interest. in the success of our community. And if COVID teaches us anything, it's that, hey, you know what? You can be successful in your own line, but it's not going to make a difference to this community unless you can expand it out. And so we believe that. We have many alumni leading successful efforts to bring the economy back, to deal with things in our communities through healthcare. And so what we're doing is hopefully providing them opportunities to help our youth take on the next step, which is, hey, they're making a difference. Maybe one day I can go out and I can make a difference as well. That should be a kuleana that we all have as graduates at Kamehameha.
Awesome. I like that. That's a great way to wrap up this edition of Keeping It Pono podcast. And again, we try to do one episode a month. We're keeping it relatively simple for now. And you can stay tuned not only to the audio version, which is available through our ksbe.edu/alumni page, and also on a video version, which is on our KS YouTube page. And we want to thank our viewers and listeners who made that first episode very successful. And we're hoping that we can continue to build this audience. And also, you can catch us on social media at Kamehameha Schools Alumni on the various social media outlets there. So any parting words, Pono, before we wrap up this edition?
Yeah, I just think with so much going on, be safe, take care, and as much as possible, when you get a chance, give back.
I like that. And on that note, for Pono, I'm Kyle. Take care and aloha.